is going to be number 1.
Yeah, but that's okay. But whatever happens, I'm going to take out.
And then there's 24.
Right. 24. 27.
Yeah.
28. 29. 30. That's it. Okay, I'll get them covered right now.
You're dreaming, so. Okay. I'd like to call the meeting to order. What we have before us now, we have, just before lunch, we'd finished all of the questions. We are now into speaking and motions. Understanding there will be a lot of motions, and we're going to proceed fairly slowly so everybody can grasp the amount of motions that are coming forward. The clerks are diligently trying to make sure everything is in order, so I ask for your patience and diligence as we move forward in presenting all of the motions. Josie, there was something you forgot to overlook in the green pages. I'm just wondering if you could, so everybody can just grab the green pages, and Josie has to have a few additions she wanted to add.
So through you, Mr. Chair, it was my omission this morning as we began the meeting to draw your attention to page 2, in which we start highlighting all the financial implications, because the last time we met, I did provide you with some additional revenue items that we had identified up until the last meeting. So, and now we have 2 more. So I just wanted to make sure everyone was very clear about what we had in terms of offsets for some of these additions that are being considered. So just to go through the list to be really crystal clear, when we launched the budget, we said that we had an expense item in the non-program budget from the vacancy rebate program elimination. They were sitting there at $5.5 million to be used towards poverty reduction and retail distress. So if we have recommendations here that actually, which we do, to fund those kinds of initiatives, that 5.5 is dedicated to those expenditures. We identified the last time that by going to 0.1% to reach inflation, that gave us an additional $3.7 million. We highlighted the last time that our final assessment roll generated another almost $3 million. Since we've last met, we went back and confirmed all our non-program estimates. We are able to adjust our tax penalties revenue by another $2.2 million. And again, since we last met, our land transfer tax at year-end actually came in $10 million higher than what we were projecting when we launched the budget. So by matching our land transfer tax to our actual experience, then there's another $10 million available to the committee for 2018. So in total, that provides the equivalent of $34.7 million against your list of enhancements that you're considering.
Thank you. Question on that, Councilman Havrick?
Just for clarity's purpose, 1.1% inflationary tax increase. So is it fair to assume, to count, that a 1% tax increase would yield us 37.25, 1%? If 0.1 is 3,725,000, then a 1% tax increase is 37 million. Is that fair math?
It's not a 1-for-1. I think it's about 29 million on a 1%. So this was around the ability to adjust for the 0.1%. And it takes into account some of the shifts that occur as a result of the final roll.
So the number for 1% equals, what's your working number?
Mr. Chair, 1% yields about $29 million. The 0.1% is really a reflection of the final roll that we got in December, and that's what it works out to. But 1% for planning purposes yields $29 million in tax levy.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions on that? So specifically, now we're doing questions on what, I mean, Josie had that little, so there's questions on that. We've already gone through all the questions on everything else. Sorry?
Through you, Mr. Chair, what I did not do this morning was to recap the additions in terms of changes to estimates that are identified on page 2 of the green sheets. It's the last 2 items that were not there the last time we met. The $2.2 million in revised tax penalty revenues, as well as increasing land transfer tax based on the 2007 projected year-end experience.
So we are doing, if there are any questions on that section on additional revenue, which is the top of page 2. Were any committee members don't have any questions on that? So Councillor Davis.
So the additional assessment growth, what was in originally, 55 million?
Yes.
So we're talking about 13, so 68 million.
Yes, and that was the subject of a briefing note the last time we met.
And this is updating the final roll. The vacancy rebate. Why is this in brackets? 5.5, I don't understand.
So last year when council approved the elimination of the vacancy rebate program, it had indicated that 50% of the savings would come to the bottom line as a savings to the city.
Yes.
The other 50% to be dedicated towards poverty reduction and distressed retail.
And it was originally supposed to be 22, so half a year was 11, and then a quarter of that was 5.5.
And that's this number. So the implementation's been delayed, so we were only able to reflect 50% of what we thought we were going to get this year, and that's the 5.5, because we didn't get the regulations. So this is the amount available. We still will be paying rebates into at least the first quarter of 2018, so we've had to hold back about 6.5 million of that 50%, which would become available to fund the balance of the poverty reduction and if there's any additional distressed retail in 2019. So we
Okay, so I don't really understand that. So we're actually, this is not a revenue then? You're saying that revenue was over-predicted, if that's a way to...
No, through you, Mr. Chair, we did not reduce the budget by this value and kept the expense in the budget as a placeholder
Right.
until such time that you were getting to this point in the process. So we can now reduce that expense. That provides $5.5 million room in the budget below zero, below the balanced budget. So had we taken that as a savings, then that would have been accounted for in the budget that was launched. So we held the expense in place until such time as we got to this point in the process. So it was earmarked. We didn't cut the budget until now because we knew that we're going to offset this with additional ads. Now we can reduce that because council directed that it be used to fund poverty reduction and distressed retail. On your list of 41 million,
Those things are in?
the $41 million
Presumably in the omnibus.
Correct.
And so there is still a loss of revenue.
No, it was a rebate, was an expense. So it's savings. We're not giving as much. We were hoping initially
Okay, of
to
course.
actually eliminate
Of
the
course, it's
program in
double-
18.
Yes, okay.
Okay.
I understand that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor, welcome, Councillor Perks.
I've been saving it all up. To follow up on the point Councillor Davis was making, I thought I heard you say there's been a delay in implementation?
That's correct, yes.
So this isn't recurring? Next year, we will have to give more rebates than we are giving this year.
So let me just recap. The program was roughly around $23 million.
Yes.
50% to reduce the budget, 50% to use the savings, the room created by no longer having a rebate expense program.
Yes.
To fund poverty reduction and distressed retail.
Yes.
Last year in the budget, we took a quarter of that amount
Yes.
into the budget.
Yes.
Based on an assumption of a certain implementation date, thinking that the other 3 quarters would happen this year.
Yes.
Because of the delay,
Okay, I get it now. Yep, I'm with you.
so there's another
Okay,
6.5
but now I want to go to the
next
great
year.
mystery. Now I wanted to go to the great mystery, which is the Mahevik mystery. How is the amount of money that we raise from the final roll greater than the amount of money that we raise for planning purposes on the tax side? Councillor Mahevik pointed out in his question, you're assuming that 0.1%, if you use of a property tax point, if you use the final roll, is 3.7 million. There is no math in the universe that doesn't mean that if you had done 1%, it would have been 37 million. So is 1% 37 million, or is it 29 million?
It ought to be, 0.1 ought to be 2.9 million. And the reason that you see 3.7 is because there were minor additional amounts included in the final roll.
When you say little amounts in the final roll, what you mean is our
Adjustments.
tax base has increased.
By a small amount, yes.
And so that's assessment growth through a back door, or what is that?
It is assessment growth. It's considered assessment
Okay,
growth.
so now we're to the meat of the thing. So our assessment growth. Right now, we provide services to everyone in Toronto out of a tax base. And then, when we can't make it all add up, we take the assessment growth. Isn't that a de facto reduction in service per capita? The correct answer is yes.
No.
Well, it is, the original budget was less per capita.
Okay, I'll just leave that one there. Those are my questions.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions on that small little section? It's not a small section, it's a big section, but okay, we are now ready for speaking. As we have to do and always do, it is now the opportunity for outside councillors to speak.
I haven't even seen this.
Any outside councillors who wish to speak? Councillor Perks.
Thank you. So I want to just very quickly talk on a high level. As everyone in Toronto knew, some magical things would happen at the last moment so that all the crisis that we thought we were going to have around the $42 million worth of programs on a net basis would somehow be funded. And once again, we see that the way we've done it is unsustainable. Year after year after year after year after year, we take unsustainable revenues at the final hour in order to make it look as if we are meeting the service needs of Torontonians. But the thing that everyone forgets in this moment in the conversation is that next year, because many of the revenue sources involved in solving this problem and the budget generally were unsustainable, we're going to start out in a deeper hole than we started out in the previous year. It's because there's this fetish on keeping taxes low. If we were honest from the very beginning about, with Torontonians, that if we want taxes here, we can only provide services here, we wouldn't play this elaborate game and make the hole we're in bigger every year. And that habit for the last 8 years of mismatching our real ability to pay for services with the services that we deliver so that we can tell people we're good guys has created a slowly widening gap. And you see that slowly widening gap in the way that Torontonians actually experience services. We tell everyone we're not falling behind in public transit. Well, the fact of the matter is, with 40,000 people a year moving into the City of Toronto, we should be seeing an increase of about 10 million trips a year in the City of Toronto. And we're not seeing that because on a per capita basis, we are offering less service. City manager said that on the very first day of this budget. None of the math magic that we have seen here today solves that problem. Similarly, we know that we have the most difficult circumstance for young families trying to get childcare anywhere in the country. And this year, while we got some provincial money to try to help us, the fees for full fee paying parents are further out of reach. Similarly, you'll recall when we were debating the short-term rental, I asked a question of staff. Are we building affordable rental units as fast as we are losing them? And the answer is no. So on the issue of affordable housing, we are also falling behind. Those are three of the services that Torontonians rely on most: transit, childcare, housing. They're some of the most important things we do. And on each and every one of them, the experience for the average Torontonian in trying to access that service, or the price that they pay for that service, is gotten worse. We're falling behind in the critical things that we need to do. And we're doing it in pursuit of this notion that we have to make the city affordable, as if the only thing that makes the city affordable is how much property tax you pay. Well, that's foolish. As work that's been done by the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives shows very clearly, 80% of Torontonians get more value in public services on a dollar than they pay in tax. The 20% who are very wealthy people and own very large homes and don't consume as many public services as those of us who are either middle income or lower income do, we fall further behind so that we can protect that 20%, the wealthiest Torontonians. That is why you're here today doing unsustainable things, because you know you can't tell that 80% that you're cutting the services. We continue to govern for the benefit of the people who own the most expensive properties and deliver in our key service areas declining quality of service. We make it better for the wealthiest Torontonians and worse for the 80% of us who work and pay and live and breathe in this city. It's terrible budgeting, and you've just made it worse by being unsustainable.
Thank you, Councillor Perks. Councillor Davis to speak.
I haven't had a chance to look at the motion. I know this motion has been wrapped up and tied up with a bow for some time. I wish we'd had really realistic opportunity to be able to understand what's proposed today. I do want to say, while the budget has become more streamlined, and I want to give first credit to Josie and her team for the work they do to try and make it more comprehensible for the majority of people. It is still a total challenge to explain to our constituents what is in it and what is not. And I have to say this year, while there was some rationale provided for why things were out and some things were in, it made absolutely no sense to me. $95 million outside the budget, but actually there was $56 million of revenues. So childcare, we know that. I haven't looked here, but I know those 825 spaces are now in the budget, and we're going to announce there's 825 new subsidies in the budget. The money was always there. What was not in the budget? 100% provincial dollars for the family and children's centres that we're mandated to provide on January 1st. Not in the budget. Resource for special needs, home childcare inflation costs, affordability costs, things that were there, fully funded by the province, not in the budget. I mean, how do we go out and consult on a budget that is a fake budget? We knew all along all these things were going to come in. So anyway, that part of it has been very frustrating. The second part is, on the childcare piece, that we committed to 20% municipal dollars to match provincial and federal dollars. We did twice. And we received $56 million from the federal and provincial government, and there's $2 million in this budget. Yes, there's a plan, a promise for this next term of office to maybe phase it in by 2020. By then, there'll be more federal and provincial dollars. How do we match those? And to achieve our affordability targets, we need a lot more money. Childcare in the City of Toronto is unaffordable. There are not enough subsidies and not enough licensed spaces, and we showed leadership, and we were going to invest to make it happen. And while I know a lot of people think childcare, oh, I wish that Janet Davis would stop talking about childcare. Well, I won't. Because I know absolutely that childcare is essential for families in the city if they want to work, and they have to work. And it's important for children, and it's important for our city from an economic perspective. We are at the bottom of the list in all of the OECD countries in terms of our commitment to childcare. We can't do it alone, but we've always committed 20%, and we should be committing 20% this time, so that we can make sure families are supported and allowed to be both parents and engaged in the workforce. That's one thing. As far as all the other things that are not getting funded, we have 180,000 people waiting for recreation programs in the City of Toronto, not being funded. We have crowded transit, not being funded. There are many things in this budget that do not reflect the needs and the growth of the population in our city. And we have to be doing that. Do you know, this year we assumed the final upload on social assistance, another $22 million. You know what that is? From 2008 until this year, we received $250 million. Where did it go? We used that money to underwrite low tax increases. That's what we did. We used it to absorb into the budget $250 million. It didn't get reinvested in social programs. It didn't get reinvested in recreation programs. We used it to keep our tax rate the lowest in the province. And I just want to say, I read the KPMG report, and I talked about this morning. Toronto is the lowest out of 111 cities in terms of its tax rate and its tax environment. 111 cities. We can do better, we should do better, and we should be investing in the city both for its needs currently and its growth for the future. And we are not doing that.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Seeing no outside speakers, we're going to be moving to committee. I'm going to be, so that I've had requests. We just want to let you know how we're going to be moving the motions. And this is partly to assist clerks because there's a huge volume that we have to do. So I'll be moving my motions and speaking first, followed by Councillor Nunziata, Burnside, Mihevc, and then Campbell. Part of that has to do with just volume, so we're trying to make sure this is what clerks have kind of requested. I have, now I know I'm going to put my motions first. So and I think everybody has a package now because there is quite a few of them. So I'd like to at least, I'll move them all and we'll allow clerks to move forward. And you can have a look at them, just so we at least get them on the table. So I will, if you want to ask me questions on the motions, that's in order. I have to place them first. So I'm going to be I'm placing some motions, and if we can have the clerk start. And the first motion will be, if I'm not mistaken, that is the large, well, as we call the omnibus motion. That is there. So that is there. Naturally, I'm not going to read it all. That's,
Transform TO, it's not in.
yes, it is. Councillor, that's fully in there. 100%.
It's not in your motion yet.
Oh, it will be. It will be in by the end. Sorry. So, there are, as you said, there are a number of councillors moving some motions. Some of the items may or may not be in this larger motion. Some of the other councillors may move other portions of the recommendations. So that is the first motion, the large motion. I know we do have to run through it. Again, there are copies available. I think everybody has a copy of that on their desk, and it is available, I believe, for the public. It's being handed out now. Yeah. Yeah, we just have to scroll through this for the video feed. But I believe another councillor will be moving that. I think Councillor Nunziata will be moving that. Okay, next motion. I request we need a bit of patience on all of this, as there are a lot. So motion number 1. And again, I'm not going to read all of these motions. There's a lot of them there. This is, in essence, taking some money out of the parkland acquisition, East
Mr.
District
Chairman,
Local Development
Mr.
Reserve.
Chairman, sorry to interrupt, but there's an awful lot of noise in here.
You're right. Can I have everybody calm down? There is if you get they are all, my motions are distributed. I have given the clerks permission to distribute all of mine. The other councillors have to give permission as normal process. So mine are all out there right now. You have a copy of all my motions. So motion 1 is in front of you. And again, if you want to follow through in the package I've given you, it's all there. Motion 2. Is there, and again, that is to do with moving money around from the West District Local Development Reserve Park or Reserve Fund for a couple of projects. Councillor Campbell.
What ward is this concern?
Whose ward do you think he means?
I believe that, if I'm not mistaken, I believe this is Councillor de Bearmaker's ward.
Councillor de Bearmaker.
Okay, Councillor de Bearmaker's ward.
There's a surprise.
What's the net of this?
He's getting leaf collection too.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Can I,
Oh, I'm sorry. It's Councillor Palacios' ward. I apologize about that.
So can we just understand?
Councillor Davis, can I please have order in here? We are in committee right now, and I would ask the respect that we allow the committee members to speak.
So can I ask a process question? So these ones I did not get over my lunch hour under embargo. So I don't know what staff work or real financial impact or even future year impact there is on these ones. Is there some backup knowledge? These ones that are now coming forward,
That's not the part. You can't ask.
some are from councillors, but they're not things that we've reviewed in the green sheets?
There's a combination of things that are in the, no, out of all of these, there's a combination that some are in the green sheets, some are not. And there is a combination of those in here right now, Council.
So as we walk through them, if you could, it will lower my blood pressure as we walk through them, if you could let me know if they're associated with something we've had a review of in the green sheets and when they're not.
Okay, I can do that.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
Again, This particular one is a motion that was moved on behalf of another councillor, which is normal what we do in all of our committees. Councillors do move motions on behalf of other councillors, as a practice that we have done in this committee and other committees, and this is exactly what this is. So this would be on behalf of another council. I believe this is Councillor Palacio. Count. Motion 3. Can we please have order here?
Mr. Chair, if you, I'm not going to apologize for interrupting because we veered from process. I'm speaking now because I'm following on my point of order because I hear an objection. Ordinarily, we are very much used to having someone come and advocate for something that is a random motion that is in fact going to increase the budget and is coming from funding sources that may be already earmarked for other things. And so my interruptions, points of orders, whatever you want to talk to, whatever you want to call them, are in that nature. So if we could know the funding source and whether or not I've been briefed on this by staff through the green sheets or any other method in the budget process, as I'm going through them, that would lower my blood pressure and allow me to be fiscally responsible with the city's money.
Thank you, Councillor, and I will endeavour as we go through these motions to let you know that. And I will be clear, we are following the proper process with regard to this. Whether a councillor is here or not, they have the right to move motions, and members of the committee do have a right to move or to ask councillors to move them. Whether they are here or not, that's part of the process for their right. So, motion number 3. This is General Manager Parks, Forestry and Recreation to take the necessary steps to require and execute capital delivery agreements. I believe this one, what I'm going to do is rely on Josie here as we're moving through. This was already part of. So some of these are technical in nature, some of these are part of the green. This is one that is part of the green pages. Yeah, okay. And again, motion number 5, which is the acceleration of the Vision Zero Road Safety Plan, is in the green sheets. This is one of the, so that's there. Motion number 6, the council increased the 2018 to 27 preliminary capital budget plan for transportation. That is also part of the wrap-up. And again, to work with, for transportation service, to work with Parks, Forestry, Recreation, to do an assessment of Brimley Road South. That is actually my motion. That is to deal in the future, not this particular year, to deal with problems on Brimley Road South. So that's 2019. At City Council, and we're on number 8 now, the Council increased the 2018 to 27 preliminary capital budget and plan for a Toronto Transit Commission, the total project cost of $5 million, and I'll leave the rest there. But Josie had just mentioned that. That's a $5 million amount that was part of the wrap-up. Motion number 9. Increasing the total project cost of the infectious disease control information for public health. That is part of the wrap-up. That's all zero net. Motion 10. Again, this is a motion on behalf, I believe, this Councillor de Beermaker? Okay, this is Councillor de Beermaker, to deal with the Menno Reser Restoration Project. The funding is coming from, where am I here? Where's the funding? The Tree Canopy Reserve, sorry, with a zero. Motion number 11. Again, that is part of the wrap-up. Motion number 12, that the Manager of Economic Development Culture report back in time for the 2019 budget process on a multi-year plan based on the results of the research and analysis benchmarking of the City of Toronto's investment in culture relative to the other comparable jurisdictions, on the likely impacts of a future increases of $2 million per capita to cultural funding beginning in 2019. That is my motion. That is to increase starting in 2019, depending on the reports coming back, to continue the $2 million investment we've been doing over the last 4 years. Again, that's coming back in 2019, has no 2018 impact. Again, this is part of the wrap-up notes as well. The Toronto Significant Investment Program funds. Motion number 14, I just need to, this is Councillor De Bearmaker. This is very quickly to deal with our commitment to the tree canopy. I think, wait a minute, is this? Motion number 15. This is a receipt of $150,000 from the United Way, York Region, as a contribution to the Black Youth Leadership Grant in confronting anti-Black racism. And this is also in the wrap-up notes to put the funds towards the anti-Black racism. Yeah, that's all zero. Motion number 16. Council increased the preliminary operating budget, shelter support and housing by $10.6 million. It's a zero net. It's in the this is all in the wrap-up notes. Okay, number 17, again, also a zero net to increase city planning to facilitate funds received from the Hal Jackman Foundation, $20,000. It's also in the wrap-up. Number 18. This is, thank you, this is all about provincial funding that has come in for AODA and long-term care. Motion 19. These are the closing motions, technical motions that have to be done or had to be done. This is to submit to Toronto Fire Services a budget briefing note that'll go to executive on February 6th. So I'm number 24 now? Yeah. Sorry, we sorry, but, oh, I apologize. And that this is, so this is a briefing note that'll come to executive to deal with the fire safety strategy and the tenants first. There wasn't time to get it here to consider, so we're trying to get it to executive. That's why. Motion 25. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, sorry. There's two count. Okay, so we're going to motion 27. Again, this is the Portland's flood protection. It's technical in nature. This is part of the wrap-up as well. It's quite long, but it's in there. Okay, motion 28 that the Budget Committee receive 2018 capital budget briefing note number 46. And again, this is just a receipt motion to accept numbers 40, 41, 42, 20, 43, 44, 40, and 46 briefing notes. And again, we're now at motion 30. There's 29, 30. Now, this is that City Council direct that the following confidential materials remain confidential, and I do have to read these. 2018 preliminary operating budget notes by City Clerk's Office. The confidential attachment of the 2018 preliminary operating budget notes, facilities, real estate, environment, and energy. Confidential attachment 2018 preliminary operating budget notes, Office of the Treasurer. 2018 preliminary operating budget notes, Office of the Mayor. The 2018 confidential preliminary operating budget notes, Toronto Public Health, January 12, 2018, confidential operating budget briefing note 31, impact on the counter and customer service functions of proposed reductions in the Office of the Treasurer, 2018 budget, January 12, 2018, operating budget briefing note 33, Auditor General's annual one-time potential savings, as they pertain to personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, the receiving of the advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege and labor relations or employee negotiations, and BU 41.1J, Toronto Public Health 2000 operating budget request. There's a confidential attachment there. Oh, there's more. There's a second page. Okay, BU 41.1K, Student Nutrition Program 2018 operating budget requests and program update. Confidential attachment 1 to the report from the City Solicitor, legal opinion from the City Solicitor on the Student Nutrition Program as it pertains to the receiving of advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege. Is that it? And that's it. Thank you. And there's one more that has to go in. Before I begin, as part of my remarks, the first thing I have to do is, number one, I want to thank all the Budget Committee members and councillors who have been involved in this process for the last couple of months and who have actually come out. And Councillor Davis, I'll recognize you, and of course Councillor Perks, that has pretty much been out to all the meetings. And I want to recognize you for the work that you've been doing. Also want to thank our city staff. If you could appreciate the amount of work and energy that goes into putting in a budget is incredibly intense, and I want to thank everybody from all the different divisions and agencies for the work that they've done. And a lot of that work, and then sometimes you don't necessarily see it in the decisions we're making and we're reporting out, but in all the work that they've done in trying to balance their budgets, trying to bring in efficiencies, looking different ways to modernize, to transform this huge, huge, complex organization. And that has given us the ability to actually do the kind of investments that we're doing here. But from my perspective, this is a very good news budget. It's the fourth year in a row that we've kept property taxes at or below the rate of inflation. And we are keeping life in Toronto affordable for the residents of this city. Now, what we're also doing in keeping taxes low and affordable for the residents of the city, we're also investing in new services. There are, in this budget, what you're going to see, what I have moved and what a few other councils will be moving, over $50 million of investments, while at the same time keeping property taxes low. I think that's an incredible achievement that we've enabled to do. And I can run down a whole list. You've seen them in my, my motion and other councils, but I'm just going to highlight some of them. Of course, we've avoided any cuts to the TTC. We've avoided fare increases. We are having a TTC fare freeze this year for low-income residents. Transform TO, even though it's not in my motion, will be totally totally supported and funded. Vision Zero is going to be we're going to be accelerating that. We have the anti-black racism strategy and Indigenous offices. We have a lot of stuff here that we are putting into this budget, and I think it's incredibly ambitious in what we've been doing, even though other councils will disagree. I've heard time and time again we have to raise taxes to meet the needs of the people in this city. Well, we're showing here that we can keep taxes low and affordable, but we can also at the same time do the investments that are needed. Again, over $50 million of new investments is in here. And again, how are we balancing this? That is always the struggle when we're looking at balancing and we come down to the end of the year. We started with a budget that was in essence balanced by the city manager, which was something we have not done in many, many years. So we started off at a very good state. And as we went through the process, there were additions made. There were $41 million that were put or left outside of the budget process because the city manager felt that those are policy decisions or decisions that council had to make. That is why they became on the outside of that, not part of the new and enhanced. Through the process, we added a lot more new and important investments, and then they add up to that $50 million. So when we look at over the $50 million and how do we pay for this, there are three main categories that we looked at doing this, and of course assessment growth was part of that. There is an amount of assessment that Josie did mention of $13.3 million that enabled us to add to more of the, to put in more of the investments. We have taken some from the Parking Authority, Toronto Parking Authority. There is an increase in the MLTT of $10 million. And there's the vacant unit rebate, and there is an amount that we'll be taking from our reserves. But understanding the reserves are there for a purpose. Reserves are there for when we need them. We went through in the last 4 or 5 weeks incredible work and challenges with our shelter system. We needed to make decisions. We needed to add money into the budget that wasn't there initially. And those are the kind of monies that I think we needed to add as part of the process. But we used and we are using certain reserve funds to enable us to do that. And we're using them for the purposes that they were there. Those reserve funds every year get replenished based on a number of different factors. It's in the budget, but it's also part of the surpluses that we'll be getting. So there's a way, they work the way they're supposed to be working. So at the end of the day, I think it's an incredibly good budget. We've added a lot, and we've managed to keep taxes low, which I think is a critical component of why I know my residents voted me in to be a councillor. Thank you. Next, we have Councillor Nunziata.
Thank you. So I have two motions to move. Motion 21, which is for the childcare. If we can put it on the screen. It was part of the your pink sheet, your green sheets. Okay, I'm not going to read it all. And then as well as I have another motion. Okay, can I speak, please? Got the floor.
This is Councillor Nunziata does have the floor.
Yes. And my next motion is for Transform Teal. We can put that on the screen, which is fully funded, according to the briefing note that we received from staff. Now, just a few... Ready? Okay.
Yeah,
just a few comments. Councillor Davis mentioned she doesn't know what this budget is all about. Well, what this budget is all about is the public consultation meetings that we've held in the past few weeks and briefings. It was very clear that at all the consultation meetings that we had was that the deputants that deputed asked us to put the money back in on the new enhanced. And that was a total of 41 million, and we're doing that and even much more than that. So what we're doing is exactly what the community and what the people asked us to do. That's what this budget is all about. Councillor Perks mentioned, well, in the past 8 years, we've been taking money out of reserve. Well, it's not just been the last 8 years. It's been since amalgamation. When David Miller was mayor, every year he balanced the budget by taking money out of reserve and a tax increase. So it's not just in the last 8 years. So I had to clarify that. As far as the child care growth strategy, and I moved that motion because it was very clear through the deputations. And Councillor Davis, you spoke actually at one of the meetings that we had in East York on putting that money back into the budget. And as this plan notes, in 2018, we will provide 825 subsidies. This is exactly what the committee intends to do today with this motion. I believe that what we're doing today and the money that and the motions that you have before us by Councillor Crawford and myself, that addresses the issues and concerns that our residents had coming to the meetings, asking us to put the money back in for the new and enhanced, not much more, exactly what we had at the budget consultation meetings. And I believe that we're doing that. And I think that we're addressing the issues that the residents had, and commend the chair. It was challenging at times, but I believe that we're right where we should be, and it's actually, in my opinion, one of the best budgets we've had.
Thank you, Councillor Nunziata. Next is Councillor Burnside.
Thank you. Motion.
You got a couple motions?
Yeah, just motion number. I only got one, but motion 23.
I think there's 3.
Motion 23, what's that?
No, I think there's actually 3 you have, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, sorry, just one.
One motion, 3 parts. One motion, 3 parts. No, that was my own script, Janet. But thank you for the encouragement.
Practice like you guys do.
Mine's so minor.
Hey, Councillor, you're on.
But important. This is an increase, the motion's on the screen, to fund the road to mental readiness for firefighters, training and the transfer of one human resources person, $92,000 net.
Where's the money? Let me see where the money's from.
Thank you.
Final assessment growth estimate.
Assessment growth. Look at that guy.
Thank you, Councillor. Next is Councillor Mihevc. We'll let the clerks catch up here. Okay, Councillor Mihevc.
Yes, thank you very much. I'll place the motions, but I'd like to just make a few introductory comments before I do that.
We have to place your motions first.
I just did.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Chair, from what I've heard from in the last few months, from the, sorry, Gord, could you take it outside? I can't hear. I can't hear.
Then, Councillor Perks, you can take it outside of the committee if you choose, but you should be respectful for the councillors who do want to speak.
That's what they were doing to me, too.
Councillor Mihevc.
Thank you. From what I heard at the budget consultations, and from what I've been hearing over the past month and a half related to the shelter crisis, is that people in Toronto want us to invest in the city that we are building. They want us to, and it was speaker after speaker in all the sessions that I went to, and I went to 3 of them. They want us to be bold and have some political courage in the services that we offer. Interestingly enough, having been through this process for now, I guess this is my 20th or 21st year, I did not hear a single person in any of the ones that I went to say freeze taxes, cut taxes, the anti-tax thing. Did not, except one person who I think is a candidate running in one of the wards, who may be a candidate. One person. I think that we are in a different moment here at the city, where people want us to invest in the city, in the city of Toronto, and they want us to have courage in the areas of what I heard. The themes that emerged are around inequality and around poverty, the growing distance between the haves and the have-nots. They want us to invest in the area of housing. They want us to invest in the area of shelter and housing. They want us to invest in mobility and in it includes public transit. They want us to invest in climate change, and they want us to invest in strong public services. You know, they want us to adopt a we can do it kind of approach. I would say that there are a lot of good things in this budget, and there are things that need to be fixed. My list of motions was a lot bigger, and I certainly appreciate that a lot of things have been covered by other councillor colleagues. But here's where I am right now, Mr. Chair. The deal for me being on this committee was that I would put my nose to the grindstone, work diligently, do the best I could inside this committee structure, and I would, if I put forward reasonable proposals on additional amendments, that they would be reasonably considered and looked at. So it's in that context that I put forward these motions. The first one was actually from staff to give voice to the changes in the shelter system. The next one is the public health ambassador program to support at-risk youth. This is number 31. It's very small dollars, and the commitment here would be that public health would try to find for 2019 a new funding source for this, but this basically supports at-risk youth. And our children's aid societies have called us and said that they want that monies restored. The next one is the staff need this to basically allow for the farmers markets not to be charged a different rate. And if we want to support farmers markets, this is $3,500 worth, and staff have said that they are able to absorb that cost. The next one, 33, we have been having an ongoing debate at the TTC on the overcrowding on the system. You will note from briefing note number 39 that the cost of implementing on a full year basis so that we don't have crowding according to our own standards is $12.5 million. $12.5 million, and that covers peak and off-peak. In consultation with staff, the amount for 1/3 of the year, when the buses are starting to arrive this coming spring and summer, would be 4.2. You've already put in 1. This is the outstanding amount. This will allow people, frankly, to get to work on time. There are so many of us, so often. I am stuck on more platforms and at more bus stops because I'm a regular user of the TTC, and I'll tell you, people are deeply frustrated by the overcrowding on the system. The next one, number 34, it was in the appendix. Staff have done good work on this. If we believe in making sure that all our departments look like the city we represent and serve, this helps the fire department do that. The fire department is trying their best to diversify what they agree is a pretty monolithic fire department in terms of color, race, and so on. This will allow some good work to be done in that area, and it's $200,000, and it's only one-time money. It's to hire an outside consultant to look through their systems to improve how they hire, how they recruit, how they educate, and so on. So this is one-time money. The next one is around the advancing social procurement objectives at the city. We heard from a number of sources that the area of social procurement and the area of community benefits is a place that we need to strengthen. That at the end of the day, the best guarantee against poverty is not housing, but a job. A job. And this is to try to find levers, because we are not just a big employer, but we also let out lots of contracts to find ways that we can leverage that. Other countries, the United States is way down the line on this, so is England is way down the line on this. We're at the beginning of seeing ourselves as a city being able, and frankly as a set of municipalities across the country in this area. I'm almost finished, Mr. Chair. So that's what that one is. That one's not asking for money, but is asking staff to report to executive committee if possible, but no later than council on the resource requirements. And no one is looking to hire tomorrow. But if you can get that person in place by the end of 2018 so that the new council and the new poverty reduction plan that's coming at the beginning of 2019, they can hit the ground running and they don't need to spend another year hiring the additional person, if indeed that is where staff recommend. The next one is Community Partnership and Investment Program and questions to staff. This is to cover our piece, not the whole piece for all community agencies across the city that are hit because of Bill 148 and the and minimum wage increases. This is to respect our piece of that pie. Staff say that they need $80,000 to do that. So that's what that is. And the last, second last one. It's my last one is $154,000 to do phase 4 of Swim to Survive. It is an absolute catastrophe for us as a city living in a country that is 25% of the fresh water of the entire world, that we don't have everybody learning how to swim. Staff have indicated that they can do phase 4, they can do a good piece of phase 4, and that would advance the program so that we don't have the program of endless phase-in forever and ever, but we really try to do it by 2019, 2020 at the latest.
Thank you.
That's that one. So I hope you can support these motions, Mr. Chair.
I think there are
with an open mind.
I think there are a few questions. Councillor Carroll.
Yes, it's still on the screen. Motion 36. I would love to support this, but I am wondering if you would consider it a friendly amendment to remove the Bill 138 language at the end of it, because my reason for supporting it would be the support of the CPIP community. I heard loud and clear from Mr. Brillinger that he was concerned about equity issues, grant applicant uproar, if he tied it specifically to Bill 138. That would be great. I could then support it wholeheartedly, because I know they need beyond inflation for some of the things they are facing in our community.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carroll. Any other questions? I just had just one question, Councillor. Except for motion 4, which is the first one, and motion 32, which is the reduction in the farmers market that I understand can be absorbed in the actual budget. Have you considered any offsets for any of these increases that you want to do? I'm noticing there's no offsets in you're going to raise taxes, are you going to, what are you going to just, have you considered what the offsets would be?
No, I'd be subject to staff advice, and if we need to take, if we can improve in principle and take it to the executive.
Okay, thank you. Next.
Same place that you're getting yours from, for your motions.
Next is Councillor Campbell. Speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a motion that looks to the next session of Council, 2018 to 2022, that would restrict outside offices of councillors outside of City Hall to the civic centers or other agency-owned buildings where the rent is comparable to civic center space. And that's an impact of about $163,000 that we're paying right now for councillors to have offices on storefronts. So I'm not going to speak any further to that. That's self-explanatory. But just in comments about the budget, I think it's a very good budget. And you know, it was heard earlier that year over year over year over year, we cobble a budget together with drawing from reserves and drawing from MLTT or drawing from increased assessment, and it seems to me that anything you can do year over year over year over year is sustainable. I mean, it seems that the city has been able to sustain itself. And it was also said that, you know, there have been no improvements in city services, and yet, as Councillor Crawford pointed out, you know, there's a full poverty reduction strategy, there's more improvement for student nutrition, there's addition to library services, more child care. And from a TTC standpoint, you know, they're introducing some fairly major measures this year, which are the 2-hour transfer and the fair equity for low-income riders. There's also measures in the budget to address overcrowding. So contrary to what some councillors think, I think that is adding services. And I think that I congratulate Councillor Crawford and the Mayor's office and the Mayor for putting together a budget that I think makes a lot of sense and is going to satisfy a lot of needs in Toronto. My one concern is that when I started as a councillor 3 years ago, I think that the MLTT was around $480 million. And I think in that first year it crept over $500 million, and now it's over $800 million. And this is the goose that's going to lay the golden egg. And eventually, I mean, I can't see this going on forever. I mean, it's just, I mean, one day this thing's going to stop and maybe even decline, and that's when there's going to be a bit of a day of reckoning, and we're really going to have to tighten our belts or figure out other revenue sources. So that's my motion. That's all I have to say, Mr. Chair, and congratulations on a job well done.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Oh, sorry, yeah, Councillor Carroll's next.
Thanks. I just have, my motion is a small housekeeping motion. I'm not making major changes to this budget. This is simply because we are once again going to try removing the street receptionists, as we've done 3 times in my tenure here in City Hall. And once again, people complain about it, but at the very least this time I'd like to have signage that goes beyond just the tent card at the desk on the 2nd floor that says no one's here. So I've asked that we actually put signage on the main floor telling people where they must go, because there will only be one person to go to on the 2nd floor if this budget passes. Councillor Perks has already spoken to the things in the budget and that they're unsustainable. My colleague Councillor Campbell is happy that they're all there, but how I would characterize this budget is this budget provides a temporary chicken in every pot. It's a temporary chicken. We're going to pull it out of the pot at some point in time. Interest rates have begun their climb. We've had an interest rate increase, so Councillor Campbell thinks it might stop one day. It most definitely will stop. It should come as no surprise that one of the biggest pressures and one of the things we heard loudest at our deputation events in 4 corners of the city, that childcare was a huge pressure. It should come as no surprise that other governments are falling all over themselves to invest in it right now. They're simply responding to the electorate. Millennials are in their baby-making years. They're ages 21 to 35 right now. This is when they make babies, and those babies need care. Next, they'll need houses. And we think, oh, well, that's more land transfer tax. But what also happens at that point is you stop moving around. You buy that house, and then you hunker down because you're going broke paying for childcare, and you can barely afford to improve upon the house, let alone stage it and sell it. So the fun times we've had while these guys were graduating from university and spending their first little windfall in their tiny little condo is soon going to dry up. And you are going to stop having that $800 million. There's really nothing in the reserves to replace it. There isn't $800 million sitting in the property tax stabilization reserve for the day the land transfer tax start coming in. And last but not least, to the idea of we should be able to keep adding things and have an economy of scale and not really apply services to assessment growth, that runs out as well. Because basically the CVA policy, when the provincial government of the day set the thing that replaced mill rate and set the bread box size, they really took into account what it was going to cost to run cities and what we should be getting from economy of scale. They actually factored economy of scale in when they handed us our mitigation funds. In school boards and in cities, put it here. So any economy of scale that we could achieve, we achieved. And after that, in every budget town hall of every councillor, someone stands up and says, you should be rolling in dough. Look at all these condos. And every one of us gives them an answer that is a lie. Every councillor says, no, no, it's not a windfall, because for every new ratepayer, they want services just like yours, and we equally spread it out and we give everybody services as soon as they start paying property taxes. So there's no windfall at all. That's a lie. You are lying. I did not lie to my residents this year, and I won't, because we don't increase services for every ratepayer exponentially. We plug the hole in the budget with it. We just plug the hole. It is a windfall. You are using it so that you can pretend that you don't have to tell people what it really costs to run a city. So you didn't put a chicken in every pot when you put in the $41 million. You put a temporary chicken in every pot, and you're going to have to pull it back out next year, or you're going to have to be honest with people. And the only way to do that, we heard from the youth, they would like us to ask them how they want this city run before we start the budget. You're going to hear it all through the election. They want to be consulted before you start the target letters rolling, before you set a property tax rate and say, this is the rate, go away, look away now, you don't need to follow the process because the rate will be this and we won't change it no matter what comes up during the process. They don't want that anymore, and I'm not offending the city manager or the CFO or the senior financial planner in saying this, because they would like to do it that way for the first time in 10 years. Ask people what the city they really want is, and are they prepared to pay for it? But do it beforehand, because if there really are multitudes out there that will come forward and say, please, please, please don't raise my taxes, that's a meeting they'll come to, because it will still be up in the air, and they will have a reason to come and tell you their input.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you.
Any other speakers?
Yes, it is. Participatory online survey.
Okay, thank you, councillors. We are now ready. Any other speakers? Okay, now we are now going to begin the voting, and I'm going to ask for some patience with this, as there are quite a few motions that will have to be read. And I would also request that councillors make sure they put up their hands or indicate the preference so I can see them as we move forward. We are just circulating the order of the voting.
No, we're circulating the outstanding motions, and
Oh.
we're going to flash the order of the voting on the screen.
Okay. It's coming. Oh, I've got the order of voting here. So again, once clerks are ready, we'll be beginning with my motions, followed by Councillor Nunziata, Councillor Burnside, Councillor Mihevc, Councillor Campbell, Councillor Carroll, and then item as amended. So they are right there. That's the 20 is that large omnibus motion that I did? Yeah, so we're going to start with mine first. I'm just following the clerk in the order.
They're in the order in which they're placed. They're in the order in which they're placed.
Order in which they were placed is how they're going to be moved or voted on.
So is 20 the omnibus? Yes. Okay, got it.
Sorry, I'm just,
Give us 1 second.
yeah, clerks are just trying to get everything organized here, so if we could have a bit of patience. And afterwards, we're going to have a big round of thanks and appreciation for the amount of work that the clerks have been doing, not only today, but the last couple of months. Okay, councillors, just to let you know, as I mentioned at the beginning, we had 2 items. The one item we're dealing with right now, and just clerks are going to go, but there was a second item that I'd like to move. It is item BU 40.2, which is the additional City of Toronto Act reporting requirements as a result of recording of tangible capital assets.
Oh, my favorite.
So,
Hold that down.
so that is a motion we have to move every year.
By law.
By law. So I have moved that. All in favor? This is a technical motion, reporting requirements as a result of recording of tangible capital assets. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, that's carried.
There's far too much noise in here. We can't hear anything.
Thank you, Council. We are.
Please, Councillor Carroll, let us vote. My God.
Okay, we're just waiting
Ridiculous,
now
like
for
children.
clerks to finish up getting the motions in order so we can begin. Okay, we are now good to go. The list is right there. This is the list of motions as they were moved. That's, you have all of mine. They're all there. So, okay. Motion number 20. And what I'll do is I'll have the clerk put it up just so to remind you of which one it is. This is the large omnibus motion. Recorded vote. You want a recorded vote? Okay, recorded vote has been called. On number 20, recorded vote.
On motion number 20, all those in favor? Councillor Burnside, Councillor Campbell, Councillor Carroll, Councillor Crawford, Councillor DiCiano, Councillor Mihevc, Councillor Nunziata. Motion carries unanimously.
Motion number 1. All in favor? I need to see hands, please. All in favor? Opposed? That loses on a tie. Sorry? 1, 2. Let me see. All in favor? 3. Opposed? Sorry, it was lost 4-3. I apologize. Motion 2. All in favor? Opposed? That loses. Motion 3. All in favor? Opposed? That carries. Motion 4. Oh, sorry, 5. I apologize. Motion 5, which is the Vision Zero acceleration, I believe. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Motion 6. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Motion 7. It's Brimley Road South. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Motion 8. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Motion 9. All in favor? All in favor? Opposed? Okay, can we do that again? Can I have the councillors please put up their hand? I didn't see, I saw, this is number 9. All in favor? Opposed? That carries. Thank you. Motion number 10. All in favor? Opposed? That carries 4-3. Motion number 11. All in favor? Opposed? That carries. Motion 12. All in favor? Opposed? That carries. Motion 13. All in favor? Opposed? That carries. Motion 14. All in favor? Opposed? That carries. I believe number, yeah, it's 14. We're on 15 now. 14 passed. 15. All in favor? Opposed? That carries. 16. All in favor? Opposed? That carries. 17. All in favor? Opposed? That carries. 18. All in favor? Opposed? That carries. So that carries. 19. All in favor? Opposed? That carries. So now we're going to 24. This is briefing note request to executive. All in favor? Opposed? That carries. 27 is next. These are reports. All in favor? Opposed? That carries. 28. Just receiving note number 46. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. 29, just receiving those notes that are listed. All in favor? Opposed? That carries. Motion 30 are all the confidential materials. I have already read them, so they are as read. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And I believe that's it for me. So we're now going on to Councillor Nunziata's motions, 2 motions. Councillor Carroll, just
All we're voting on is receiving confidential.
yes, and that they remain confidential.
Right.
Yeah.
Just making sure we're not affecting the request.
No. Okay, Councillor Nunziata, motion 21, all in favor? Opposed, that's carried. Motion 22, all in favor? Opposed? So let me see that again. All in favor of motion number 2? Opposed? Sorry, that carries. Good. Councillor Burnside, motion number 23. All in favor? Opposed? That's all in favor? Opposed? That carries. Okay, we're now on to Councillor Mihevic's motion. We'll begin with motion 4. All in favor? Opposed? That carries. Motion number 31. All in favor? Opposed? That loses. Motion number 32. All in favor? Opposed? That carries. Motion number 33. All in favor? Opposed? That loses. Motion 34. All in favor? Opposed? That loses. Motion 35. All in favor?
It's the revised 35.
Oh, the revised 35. All in favor? Opposed? That loses. Motion 36. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, that carries. There was a mistake somewhere with somebody's vote. Motion 30. No, that was 35. 36 is as is. All in.
36, I asked the mover if he would consider friendly amendment to remove Bill 138 minimum wage piece, and he said yes.
You made a change? 36?
Yeah, period after pressures.
Okay. Just delete the rest. Okay, we know what that is. All in favor? Opposed? Councilors, can we do that again, please? Pay attention. All in favor of this item? Opposed? That loses. 37. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, let's try that again. Can we redo that, please? All in favor of this motion? Opposed? That loses. Number 37. Wait a minute, motion 30. Okay, we're doing motion 26, I believe, or 20.
25.
Sorry, this is, Councilor Campbell, okay.
Yeah.
All in favor? Opposed? Okay, let me see that again. Please, all in favor? Oh, sorry. You got to pay attention to what is on the screen. All in favor? Opposed? That carries. Yes, it does. 4-3. Okay, motion 26 by Councillor Carroll. All in favor? Opposed? That carries. Item as amended. All in favor? This is item as amended, the overall budget. Almost as amended. Opposed? That carries. Are we done? Thank you, folks. We are now done. This will be moving on to executive next week. I want to, again, thank the clerks so much for the incredible work that they did today and the last couple of months. It was exceptional. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your day.